what Steve Young said about Trey Lance developing on the bench. Real quick, I'll read it. So he was on KNBR with Larry Kruger, who asked him, is there anything that Trey Lance is getting out of this experience learning on the bench? And Steve Young says, first of all, you learn by watching. I get that. But for me, for my career, it was interesting, like listening to him say, he's very diplomatic. Let me not talk about Trey Lance. Let me just talk about it through me. He goes, for my career, those were lost years. And then he tries to kind of backtrack it because it sounds harsh. Well, what I learned while watching was amazing, but I didn't need those years. He also says it was like a waste. I look at those as kind of maybe needing 1 year to kind of really get a handle on things, but those are lost years for me. What's your take on that?
Have you noticed that when Steve Young does these radio hits, he seems angry? I don't know what it is.
Passionate.
Yeah, like
it means something to him.
When you read it, it doesn't sound angry. But if you listen to him, like I implore anybody to go find the clip.
Frustrated, angry, passionate, like it's so obvious. And if I can figure it out, why can't they figure it out, right?
And he's been on this train. It's not like us. And in the offseason, he's been on it. Like, you just rip the Band-Aid off, go with Trey Lance, everything as well too. But I think that he does correlate a lot of what he went through with what Trey's going through. And not to say that Jimmy Garoppolo's Joe Montana, obviously not, right? These are two completely different situations. There's no way that you can
and Trey's not even Steve Young. I mean, he's way younger than Steve Young.
Right. Yeah. And there's similarities, right? But it's not the same thing at all. Obviously, Joe's Joe, and it's harder to supplant Joe than it is to move away from Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Okay. But I think that what he's saying is valid in terms of the one key line that I took from it was, what I learned was valuable, but I felt like it was a wasted year.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the feeling that a lot of people have in terms of when Trey was brought in at 3 was take advantage of that rookie pay scale, use some of that extra money that you would have with moving Garoppolo to put the roster in a better spot all around. Think about the cornerbacks you could have brought in. Think about another edge rusher you could have brought in with all that money. This would make this team so much more dangerous, even if the quarterback isn't as experienced. If the quarterback is not experienced and is going to take his lumps, then you might as well try to insulate the entire roster around him better. Bring in Trent Williams. Bring in every single piece that you could bring in to make sure the kid's in the best spot. So when it sounds like he's frustrated, it really sounds like, one, he really believes that Trey should have been the guy beginning of the season, and they should have knocked this all out because he's mentioned many times. In fact, right before the Rams game, he said the biggest issue with this is the locker room doesn't know where this is going. And he said that's their fault for not taking care of this. These are Steve Young's words, not mine. And I remember that clearly. So I feel he's getting frustrated because he's starting to see things that he was feeling, or he's feeling things over again through Trey. But at the same time, you really can't correlate the two because, in my opinion, and obviously, whatever, I'm going to get labeled a Jimmy hater one way or another, even just by going on this show, not even saying anything with you, is that it would be easier, obviously, to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo than it is to move on from Joe Montana, a 4-time Super Bowl winner. So I think that a lot of what he's talking about, and if he sounds angry, it's because he feels that deep in his chest and he's starting to see it. And he's kind of been advocating for Trey Lance all offseason.
Here's how I feel about it. Here's why I love it so much. I love Steve Young. I feel like you and I and people who've been making this argument have been saying, like, if you don't play Trey Lance this year, you're wasting a year of his development. And it's a bold claim, but I feel strongly about that. It's a waste. And people come back and be like, first of all, no, it's not. It's not a waste. You learn more on the bench than you do playing as a rookie. Look at Steve Young. They always use Steve Young as the example. Also, they say, well, this is also a Super Bowl roster. You can't waste that on a rookie. Well, it's not a Super Bowl roster. They're 6-6. And Steve Young himself says sitting on the bench is a waste of time, that you learn more from playing. So it seems like this. I don't hear the argument for keeping Trey Lance on the bench while the team is floundering at 6-6. It seems harder and harder to fathom, and I love that it pisses Steve Young off. Thank you, Steve.
Well, another thing, too, another situation that people correlate this to, and I think that is completely unfair to Trey, and I fear for Trey, when he starts next year is because people are going to expect him to hit the ground running because he sat for a year, as opposed to yes,
he developed. He was supposed to be developing on the bench, right? No, he was not playing.
Right. Is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
Mahomes sat a year, and look, no, those situations do not correlate.
Yeah.
They are not the same thing. Players are not the same. They are not in the same development range at all. And that's just
because that logic assumes that Mahomes would have sucked had he played his rookie year, which
exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. And that's the thing is this is what I fear for Trey next year when he's given it, because you're not going to see Trey this year at all. I don't suspect that this team is just going to lose every single game. It would take something drastic from Jimmy Garoppolo. And I mean,
they're not going to reverse course at this point.
Right. Falling flat on his face. And it's just math. There's only 5 games left. It's just math at this point. Like, they're not going 0-5. That's not going to happen. They're going to be in the hunt, or they're going to make the playoffs the entire season. Just what it is. Even if you don't agree, you have to agree with that, because that's true.
That's true.
But I fear when they turn it over to Trey that people are going to have unfair expectations for him immediately. Meaning you need him to immediately come out and show. Right.
I know. Yeah. Sorry. I get excited.
I just don't want people to lose sight of the fact that, I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that when he gets out there, he is going to take some lumps, and it's going to happen. He's not going to just all of a sudden, after this magical 1 year of sitting on the bench, all the lights are going to go on and he's just going to understand everything so quickly and things are just going to be perfect. I don't think so. And that's not fair to the kid. And you have to make sure that you view it through the same lens. Like, next year, Mac Jones is going to improve. Mac Jones has been great. I don't care what happened Monday. That was clearly what the plan was. Mac Jones has been great. They've gotten exactly what they wanted from him. They're the number 1 seed right now. He's got the best defense in the league in front of him. He's got the best coach in the world in front of him. But next year, when he's in year 2, fans and maybe some media are going to expect that Trey Lance is going to be ahead of Mac, and that's not fair. Even if he never reaches the levels of Mac, because that is in the range of outcomes. But it's not fair to compare him. They're going to say, well, look at Mac. Mac had a whole year. Trey sat a year. That's not the same thing. And you can't look at it that way, in my opinion.